Welcome to Access Your Mastermind. I'm your host, Julie Oldberry. Today, we're joined by Serena Dickey, a certified coach with the Napoleon Hill Institute and the founder of Warrior Growth Mindset, where she helps people tap into their inner power and create lives filled with purpose, clarity, and momentum. Her coaching blends timeless principles from Napoleon Hill with practical tools for modern living, guiding individuals to build strong mindsets, healthy routines, and fulfilling relationships, all while growing their personal and professional potential. Through the Wake Up Warrior app and personalized coaching, she creates holistic roadmaps that support wellness in body, mind, spirit, and business. Serena believes transformation happens when people feel seen, supported, and spiritually aligned. And that's exactly what she helps deliver. She also brings over 20 years of experience as a talent acquisition leader through her company, Talent Achieve Inc., where she's worked with startups to global corporations across a wide range of industries. At her core, Serena is passionate about growth, helping people break through barriers, discover what's possible, and step fully into who they're meant to be. Let's tune into our conversation.
So this step that we're covering this month is specialized knowledge. So my question to you is before you found out your thing, what you wanted to do, did you ever feel overwhelmed by how much you didn't know? And if you did, how did you navigate that?
Yeah. So I tend to bring in a lot of people when I'm going through a decision making process, and I think because my background is in recruiting, and because I understand that a lot of people have specialized knowledge in particular areas, that I had to lean on different people to get that information to be successful in whatever I was trying to accomplish. So I would say sometimes the challenges with that is bringing in too many voices when I knew instinctively that I kind of had the answer, but then I'm like, oh no, I want to go ahead and reach out to this person, get their opinion. And then it kind of bogged down the process rather than just trusting in myself, right? Using my own intuition and using my ability to ask questions and dive deeper, and then going to the experts for the information that maybe wasn't as clear as I'd like it to be. So I would say that would probably be my, I'm a talker, I'm a networker. So I get excited and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this person and I don't know what they're quite doing or whatever it is. So I'm going to reach out to this person. And so I really had to just stop myself from doing that and really just trust that I'm going to ask the right questions, that I'm going to lead with the heart and really just listen, because I think that's kind of, what a lot of people don't do. They want to go into solution mode. And so that was the lesson for me, is to stop, listen, stop trying to solve other people's problems, talk through it, come up with, what I think should be done, and then go and seek out people with specialized knowledge.
Wow.
Napoleon Hill also, we break it down into kind of two types of knowledge. Like there's general knowledge, which is kind of widely available, but it's really not useful for building wealth or anything unless you apply the knowledge. But then there's the specialized knowledge, which is really kind of specific to a field or a skill or a subject. And that's the kind that creates value when it's used strategically. So, was there ever a moment when you realized that your general knowledge wasn't enough and it kind of crushed your confidence? Like when you thought, like,
Mhm.
I just, for this, I just don't have enough of the general knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's in every area of life. You think you have
I
the
can
answers,
agree
and then
with
you're
that.
like, whoa, whoa, I need better perspective on this because I thought I had it handled and I don't. So yeah, so that's every day for me, frankly. If I'm being real with you guys, I won't lie. But as far as in the workplace, absolutely. And I think that's where you find that need just to be transparent, and try to get a better understanding of what you do know, and then also take a step back and think, okay, well, what else would benefit me to go out and, maybe ask somebody else for, their opinion or their thoughts around pursuing a different avenue or going down a certain track. So yeah, so I would just say that, in life, it's a situation like for me every day. And then in business, absolutely. And I think, if what makes people successful is that ability to stand back and think, and look at things objectively and get creative and ask those creative questions. And, you have obviously different types of creativity as well, right? So if you're really tapping into that and you're looking at the problem from a creative stance, then you can actually ask some pretty deep questions and get the answers you're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you. Could you talk about maybe a time when you invested in learning something that you thought you needed, only to realize that it wasn't your path after all?
Yeah. Oh gosh. As I mentioned, I'm a very enthusiastic person.
I like
So
you said, I like
a
that you
lot.
said that.
Yeah, I think, I have a lot of different interests in a lot of different things, and I'm always eager to, jump in and try to, pursue different avenues. Like I decided, okay, I'll just tell you guys, I'll get, I decided, I love furniture. I love decor. So I thought, I'm going to go and look into feng shui, right? So I thought like, I'm going to become a feng shui master. And honestly, I have certain talents, but they're limited. So I'm like, you know what? I need to step back from this. This isn't really my lane or whatever it is. I have a really high level knowledge of it, like, kind of looking down at the experts or whatever it may be. But yeah, that would be one example of me being enthusiastic, going and investing, some serious money, and then determining like, maybe this isn't something that I would succeed in. So
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like I've gone down many, many rabbit holes of things because I'm curious, right? I want to
yeah,
like learn that. And then I get like a taste of it or like a surface level of it. And I'm like, I have to know more. I have to get in and like dive into this. And then I'm like, what are you doing? Like, really? Like,
yeah,
you're never going to be like this person. This is not like really trying to pursue. You're like, probably procrastinating from something else to just like dive into, this and whatnot. So yeah, I can relate to some of that
I
experience.
excuse me. I think it has something to do with like the spirit of entrepreneur, because I jump, right? If I see an opportunity, and it might like maybe someone else doesn't see it like I'm seeing it, but like I'm gonna jump because like that's just who I am.
amazing.
So I did have another question. So Napoleon Hill says that we don't need to know everything. We can organize and direct knowledge of others. Have you ever struggled to delegate or lean on experts like with your team? And how's that look? Like, how often do you lean on them?
How often do it? You see, yeah, I'm I'm a good delegator to a certain extent, but I do like to come up with um, ideas. So I'm more of your creative idea person, and then I like people to do for me. So um,
Like Henry Ford.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So I'm more of the type of person that'll say, okay, well, I love this idea. I'm enthusiastic about it. I want to go do it. Now let's find somebody that's really great at setting up businesses because I'm a horrible technical person. And as far as like finances, forget it. Don't talk to my husband about this. He'll tell you this is not my forte. So I am definitely one that's very real about what I can do, but my ideas are endless. So yeah, so I have no problem leaning on people.
That's great though. And you need that too, especially if you're that ideas person and that vision, because, and again, I can relate to that piece as well. And I think that also stems toward the enthusiasm you were talking about
Mhm.
and the curiosity and whatnot. You're just like, you want to get all the information you can and, just like, yeah. So, but that's good that you're able to recognize what you know yourself, what you know you're capable of doing, and probably also to the deal that, you want everything to come out like the best that it can be. So if you know you're weak in the finances or in, a technical aspect of something, then you want to seek out those experts to help you with the quality. And then from that, maybe that like rubs off on you, or you learn like a little tricks or something that will help you get a little bit further in the process. So you don't have to pick up the phone or text them like immediately, like the next time, but you just can, go a little like along those lines. But yeah, that's really cool. I love that.
It
So
really is.
what specific knowledge or skill set would you say has made the biggest difference in your success? And how did you come to like claim that as your own?
Specific knowledge, I would say understanding that when you take action and you start being persistent and you make a commitment to what your burning desire is, was probably the tipping point for me. Because I think for me, I was just living in indecision a lot. So I think I stayed in a role for a very, very long time because I loved certain aspects of the job. Just like I was an executive recruiter for 26 years. I loved interacting with people. I loved understanding what they wanted to do next and what would enrich their life. And I wanted to help them, right? And I was heart led in that journey. But what I didn't like was the corporate aspect of it, which was, giving people disappointing news sometimes, right? So,
I do not like that.
So yeah, so that if I were to say one principle for me was to step away from that role that wasn't necessary, that I enjoyed, but wasn't necessarily fulfilling, and pursue what my heart led desire is, which is to help people achieve their goals.
Awesome. That's great.
Can you talk more about that, Serena? Like what is it you're doing right now?
Yeah. So right now, what I do for myself and, when I help other people come up with creative plans is I look at the four aspects of my life, which is how am I showing up, with my family, right? So my balance, how's my balance? Am I, showing up for my husband? Am I showing up for my kids? Am I really truly the CEO of my household? Am I letting things kind of slip, or that is a work within itself, because I'm definitely, that's not my strong point, dishes and laundry and stuff like that. So definitely have to outsource that.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. And then my body, I am in my 50s, right? So I'm experiencing menopause, and I'm experiencing all these physical changes in my body. And it took a while for me to get a hold of my health, right? So now, not only do I focus on my family, but I also look at my personal health and how I'm showing up. Am I hitting the gym? Am I really eating well? Am I taking the right supplements? Do I have the right hormonal support for, the journey that I'm currently on? So that's another thing. So, I have my family, I have me, which is, my health, my fitness and health. And then also, my being. So I want to say for a very, very long time, I wasn't really rooted in faith, in my faith. So I've now really set up a program where I read the Bible every morning. I journal about it. I meditate. I have my I am statements. I'm rooted in a routine in the morning that helps me really set myself up mentally for the day, emotionally for my children. And, and also I think about how I want to show up in the world. So when I meet someone, I want that person to feel, secure in me, right? When they meet me, I want them to know that, I'm excited to meet them, and that they're, I don't want to say safe, but yeah, kind of safe, right? Because, you just, yeah, kind of held. And so, again, my balance, which is my family, my body, which is my fitness, my being, which is how I show up in the world, and what I do to, in just to set myself up in an energetic level that's how I want to present myself to the world, right? And then also my business. So, as I mentioned, I was an executive recruiter for 26 years, and I decided to start coaching. And so from a friend from another business that I was part of, um, she had mentioned that she had started with Napoleon Hill Institute and said, "Oh my gosh, you have to check this out. It's amazing, all this information. I think it'll really help you really focus your attention on what's important," and so and so and so. And again, like I'm enthusiastic. It doesn't take a lot
Yeah.
to sell me on different things. So I'm like, okay, I want to be more centered in what I do professionally. So I'm going to pursue this. So I started with the morning protocol, which is,
The
doing
discipline.
discipline camp. Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's a little late in the day for me.
Okay.
And then I went through the mentorship program, and
Mhm.
then I decided to join the coaching program. And you know, I want to say, taking in all of this information and really seeing how it applies to other areas of my life has been probably the greatest lesson for me in a interesting way.
Wow.
Just because I didn't realize that I wasn't rooted in a morning program, right? I was just kind of drifting. I wake up and I would do kind of whatever the day was calling me to do. So I needed more structure in my life. And then going through, some of the modules in, in, and it was just a really interesting moment for me because I didn't realize that um, I needed a formula, I guess. Is that weird to say? Like I needed a formula
No,
for success.
that's not weird at all.
Right. Yeah. So I needed to do this. So I really had to get clear on what was important. And those were the four aspects that I came out with is I need to focus on, my family. I need to focus on my health. I need to focus on, how my mindset is every day. And then also my business. So I know this is a very long answer to one of your questions, but
Oh, keep
I,
going.
Oh
That's
yeah,
yeah.
good.
it's great.
But yeah, so, but,
I love that you just like broke those down. I wrote down and like Serena's 4 B's: balance, body, being, business.
absolutely.
I love that. I love like consonants and alliteration and all that. So yeah, good job with that. And then I liked too how you talked about that morning routine. I remember before I got involved at the Napoleon Hill Institute and began, the morning routine myself and what not like you just wake up and like that was the worst part of my day was just waking up and getting out of bed, and then I gotta take a shower and then I gotta, it was just like this kind of like you're in almost like an autoplay, like you're just kind of moving through or whatnot. And
Drifting.
but that was also maybe reflective of how I was just feeling about life. I was just going through it,
Mhm.
going through the motions of, this is what we do. We go to work, do the, drive an hour this way, drive an hour that way, eat dinner, like just that kind of like monotony of a day. But since being exposed to this material, or I should say I've always been exposed to it, but actually applying it in life has just made a huge, like a tremendous difference. And even just how I wake up in the morning and, the thoughts that yeah, every morning I still have to like shut off certain thoughts because I just wake up with these like weird sort of thoughts. And I'm like, no, bye to you. And like you said, you've got your affirmations or your auto suggestions, your I am statements. And, building on that and how the first things that I'm going to say to myself and feeding myself with positive stuff because like you said about the housework and the dishes and the laundry, like I cannot stand domestic. Like that is the least of my desires is to be like householdy. What I mean? And so for my point of view, I'm just like this gives me, like, I can plug in to positivity. I can listen to Napoleon Hill audiobooks or whatever other audiobooks or YouTubes or just whatever is going to kind of make my mind go as my body is going through these monotonous chores and things like that. So, but I think that that has actually helped to find like just a better way to live and to get through the things that are sometimes not as that I'm not as enthusiastic and curious about.
Yeah. And I think for me too, I would wake up and my coping mechanism, and it's still a little bit of that, but I think it's more of a physical thing because I need caffeine. But immediately I would go for coffee, and I never really stopped to have a quiet moment and really go deep and just kind of breathe and just take in, just opening my eyes and enjoying that piece. So it's just made me really more mindful of just the moments that we have, right? I mean, you don't think of waking up as something special, but it really truly is if you just stop and just take that moment in and just breathe and you go, okay, I'm ready for this day. And then go and attack the coffee pot and then deal with the kids and everything else.
Right.
But yeah, so I think, doing this work has just really made me more mindful of those moments.
Really get to be, we become intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Eat, we're intentional when we do our morning process. So yeah, so Serena, like rebound or let's talk about that because that's
Yeah.
how, yeah.
I think abundance is a mindset, right? And, you can equate that to money, which is also an energetic exchange, or you can equate that just to experiences, life experiences. How the coffee mug fills in your hand in the morning, like, oh, this is a blessing. This is amazing, right? You're just cozy and warm and you appreciate your home and you appreciate all the things that come with it. So there are so many emotions tied up with the simple things that if we just stop and appreciated them, how much happier would we be rather than just bulldozing the day, So.
And just drift through the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel and going back to the morning process and with education, like if this was taught if this material was taught in school, the school system as we know it, and kids would begin having a morning process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before leaving home, they've already done their chores, they've already wrote a little on their journal. What is it that I want? What do I need to do to get it? You know, how would they go to school? They would go to school just like Serena said, I want to be energetic. I want people to feel my energy. So,
And the sad thing with that though, Nick, is that I know in your household you do that with your children. I don't know too many households that do. Maybe Serena does with hers. I don't know.
Yeah, we
I
do.
never did it with my daughter, but I also wasn't living like through the principles at that time. But, so that's part of the reason that I really like do want this to be in the schools because everyone should have access to this knowledge because if you're not going to get it in school, I can tell you you're not going to get it anywhere else unless you seek it out and write a check or charge up your card for 10 grand here and 10 grand there and 10 grand everywhere. You know what I mean? So those are the options. We teach this in school or, we continue to just let it be those who self-select to decide that they want to be successful. But, I look at this in the context of the workplace too, and I see just, people are completely disengaged with work, but they're disengaged with work because they're disengaged with their connection to themselves and to their lives, and they don't know how to make decisions about what they want to do for work, or they feel, trapped that they have to get a job for this income or whatnot. There's so much that plays into that underneath the surface that I don't think we really touch on enough in, the coaching realm at all. It is just to see how widespread and rampant this is an actual crisis. In my opinion, right? People don't know what it is to be human, how to be successfully human. And that's, one thing that I'm working on and championing with the us workforce movement. So sorry to get that little plug in there.
I love that.
But
hey,
no, but I
shout
mean
out to
this is
you.
the reason why, right? Because you know, Nick's kids are going to be okay, right? Because they've learned this. They certainly didn't get it in school, but they got it in the home. I just think
Exactly.
that all humans deserve a chance to be exposed to this information in the public education system where they can begin to work and develop, this in themselves and think of what an impact that would have on society. And Napoleon Hill has said that his estimation is that we could change this in one generation. Educating, people in school, one generation is all it would take to change that. But think of what we would have with our mental health and resiliency, our physical health, our body health. I
Mm.
mean, we had Julia Gale on here a couple of weeks ago, and she was discussing, curing cancer, the body's ability to heal itself and things like
From our
that.
whole
So,
body.
and even just understanding the concept that money is energy and, what it really is and how it works and stuff like these are the things that, should be taught and people should understand. And yeah, sorry, my soapbox. All right.
Oh, it's good.
I agree. It's funny. My son, my little guy, he's 11. My husband and I collectively, we have 6 kids, and they range from like 33 to 11. So anyway, so
Oh,
my
okay.
one is our little experiment or whatever, or,
Aw.
our shocker baby. But it's funny. With him, we're so much, I don't want to say so much more intentional because I think we've been very intentional with all of our kids, but my little guy who's 11, he is reading Don Green's Millionaire Vision book.
Yeah,
And so,
that's
you know,
awesome.
yeah, one of his takeaways is he feels rich because he has, a supportive family, right? A family that
Wow.
loves him, things like that. And you think about that, and it's again mindset, right? So he knows that he's secure in his home and that his foundation is love. And how wonderful would it be for kids to feel that, And it's unfortunately kind of rare, because people
Yeah.
are just going through life again, just kind of grabbing the coffee mug and just going rather than stopping and, talking to their kids and really sharing how important, they are in their lives and what their intentions are for them, later on in life and so on. And it's funny because, you know, I just see things kind of fall into place for my little guy because he's a good communicator and he's very thoughtful about what he says. When we drive to school every morning, I ask him, I'm like, what's exciting about today? And he'll say, well, it's Wednesday and I have this class or that class. But I have this teacher, and he always knows their backstory, which cracks me up too. And I'm thinking he's the child of a sales leader and a recruiter because
Yeah.
like he'll come home and tell me like stuff about his teacher. It's like, yes, well, she had a tragic divorce back in 19. I'm like, how do you know these things? Like, what are you doing? Like, he's such a deep diver into things.
He
So
asks good questions.
he does. He does. He's like a good listener. And then he'll go and ask follow-up questions, or he'll say, so-and-so's daughter is going to an Ivy League school. And I think that might be a possibility for me too. And I said, oh, well, like what Ivy League schools are you looking at? And he's like, well, I would consider Princeton because he also plays tennis. They have like, a D1 tennis program. And so he's done all this little research based on what these teachers are telling him about their own life experience. So it cracks me up. So sometimes he'll say, it's Wednesday and I have so-and-so, and that's the teacher whose daughter's like, going to this school or whatever it is. And she's majoring in this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how exciting. I said, well, what would that look like for you? And just get his little imagination working. And he must go back and ask them more qualifying questions to, figure out what that looks like for him, because he comes back with an answer typically. So we're having a lot of fun with this, with our little one, but yeah,
Aww.
it's just funny.
That's fabulous. I love to hear that. I love that he's reading Don Green's book. I think that's amazing. That's
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
I think the other thing that I have, I don't know, my spidey sense or whatever, I find people that are equally enthusiastic about my mission. And so typically you find people that are excited about what you're doing, they definitely will, help you with their specialized knowledge, but also give you some insight into what else you could do. So their creativity comes into play too. So it's almost like this heightened energy when you're talking to somebody and there's like, oh my gosh, okay, well, I was thinking about that. Oh my gosh, well, you know what? If you do this, then maybe you can do that. And so it just feels like things just kind of, snowball into something bigger once you get these people that are excited about helping you, right? Or see the good, the bigger vision with you. So, so yeah. So find excited people that want to help you, because
Yeah, no doubt. So, how about for our listeners? Do you have any advice for someone who feels like they don't know enough to take the next step toward their dream? Like, what would you tell them? Like, and when I'm saying like know enough, like literally they don't have enough knowledge in this area. Like they have this dream, they don't know how they're going to accomplish it because I can't do that. I don't know enough. Like, what do
right.
you tell them?
Yeah. I would have them actually take out a piece of paper. And I know this sounds really wild or whatever it is, but I would have them draw a line down a piece of paper and then write down what they're experiencing as far as their feelings about how they feel when they say they don't know enough, right? So, I feel frustrated, I feel angry, I feel, and go down that list. And then have them stop and imagine if they did go out and seek that information, how they would feel.
Wow.
And write all those emotions down on this side of the paper. And typically, once they do that and they're in a higher sense or state of feeling, they can figure out the bridge on how to get to where they want to be. So that's what I would do, is start there. And then typically they'll say, yeah, I want to feel empowered. I want to feel successful and I want to feel this. And then that's when you really identify what the hindrance is. And usually that's because they're indecisive due to fear. And once they can see that it's fear holding them back, it's that time that they can make a decision to actually actively pursue the opposite, right? Which is taking action and being bold and, being willing to fail and getting back up and starting over and making those small changes to make those big changes happen. So I think once you identify, or they identify for themselves, that they're holding them back because of something that they can actually change, they're much more willing to look at the avenues to make it happen. So that's what I would recommend.
That's fascinating. And I like that exercise a lot because, when you're putting down like the feelings of not knowing and you have this list and you're really basically, I think what you're doing is you're getting all of their negativity out into like one column, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all of their fears and their negativity and like letting them like look at
Yes.
those words, right? That's language. And then, thinking about, but how do you want to feel? And of course, then you can be like, oh, I want to feel empowered and confident and strong. And then, but that in and of itself, that change in language and starting to like look at the words on that side and just going through and seeing like, oh, I could get this. I could feel like this. And just hearing those different words, I think actually starts to lift the vibration a little. Like you said, but they're starting to think like, oh, I could, if I knew that, I could get this. So already you're elevating where they are, like they've gotten out of them, like they put on the paper the fear so they can somewhat separate now there's a little space inside there for them to think about what are the good feelings that could come just
Yes.
from learning that. I think that's really powerful. So that's great.
Now they've identified what their desire is.
Yeah.
Emotionally, right? And now they're like, okay, now I can take action. So like, let's start, using our organized planning skills to identify what I can do to achieve this goal. And when do I want this to happen? And, what players do I need to bring in to, mastermind this to make it happen? I just think that it just sparks creativity and also just removes the negativity of that fear of pursuing what they really want to do. Because really, at the end of the day, the things that we tell ourselves or the excuses that we make are based out of, our subconscious fear, or maybe it's conscious, it could be both. based on past experiences and what they're experiencing currently, or what the stories that they're telling themselves. So if you can just shift that narrative and just change their story a little bit, they can pursue what they want to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could go back and whisper a piece of specialized knowledge into your younger self's ear, what would you say?
I would say the limits that you set on yourself are not real.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell them. Like,
That's the truth, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. Don't limit yourself. Don't talk yourself out of things that you want to do. Just
How long
do
did
it.
it take you to figure that out? Like,
Oh my gosh.
honestly, like, is
I've
it
been on this planet. No, gosh.
Oh.
Yeah. No, not this year, but I've been on this planet for 5 decades. So
I know, me too.
only good, 4 of those decades. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like about 4.5 decades. Again, but if we had this in school, we'd have
Right.
40 years of experience on using these, skills and
Yeah.
processes.
Right. And just
I think
ask the question, right? And because so many times you talk yourself out of asking questions, or, addressing, or just, approaching people and asking them, is this possible? Or, what could I do to make this happen for myself, or whatever it may be. And that's also a limiting belief too, right? That you're not important enough for this person to stop and give you that feedback. And typically they want that. So people always want to feel important. They will always want to feel valuable. And, when you ask somebody for their advice, it's more of a compliment than a problem. So if you could just kind of frame it that way and go, gosh, like, I'm actually really, giving this person a nice compliment by asking what their opinion is, because they realize that I value what they think and what their knowledge is. So if you could just frame it that way, that'd be amazing in all areas.
Love that.
Limits you set on yourself are not true. I want to make a Facebook post on that.
I would love that.
With your name, because I think that's really that resonates with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that too. That's
because it's all about self-image, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we see ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Do we see ourselves successful, or do we see ourselves as failures, or just mediocre, or just drifting through life?
It's true.
And I believe that's one of the that's the reason why we're here, right? Because we want to hear from other individuals that have real life experiences using these principles. That, was it all always uphill? No, a lot of it was, but there were a lot of good downhills where we were cruising. But yeah, we want to just serve, and we want to be able to provide real life stories.
Yeah. And I can give you some doozies as far as like downhill stories. I climb back uphill or whatever it may be. Yeah. So trust me, resilience is key.
Oh, goodness.
Optimism and resilience.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep,
I like that.
Very good. Serena, would you say there's like a practical way you'd recommend someone start identifying or developing their own specialized knowledge? Like, even if they're feeling stuck or unsure about where they're going, how would you kind of guide them along this topic, like to sort through what their own specialized knowledge is?
Yeah. So I think you find that a lot with people that are trying to figure out kind of what their next career move is, but they have kind of a baseline of experience, but they're just kind of like, oh, I do this, but it's not really kind of my passion. I would say, again, it takes some time to really get honest with yourself and decide really where your calling is, right? So I think you have the skills that you acquire over your life or whatever it is, and then you have kind of your natural abilities, and then you have areas that you can develop in life. So I think if you kind of look at things in those quadrants, right? Well, I've gained this particular skill here in the job that I'm kind of iffy about, or, I enjoy, but maybe it's not what my heart wants. And then you just kind of look at those 3 buckets. I think you can kind of identify what areas you should pursue. So it's so hard because it's such an individual and personal personal thing. So that's a really difficult question, frankly. But because it would take some time to really identify,
Yeah.
what your burning desire is, right? I mean, there are steps to do that. So that would be a great starting point too, is just that practice that, if you're working with a Napoleon Hill coach, have them take you through that progression, because once you identify what your burning desire is, you're going to stop at nothing to make it happen. So I would just say,
I wonder if it's a challenge for people sometimes to identify their burning desire because they think they have to have all this specialized knowledge for it.
right.
Right. Like
Well,
sometimes, so, it can go like both ways. It's like, there's sometimes like, oh, well, because my, like purpose just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like and it started like we were talking about the limiting beliefs. It's like, I just kept kind of testing myself and I'm like, well, what if I took that a step further? What does it look like
Yes.
there?
right.
How can I
Yeah.
make that better? Like how can I
Yeah.
like expand on that? And yeah, so just to, be doing that kind of thing. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And you know what I think of too? I think when I first read or I was trying to get the concept of burning desire, and I actually went towards more of just what I want, right? And so what you want and what your burning desire isn't necessarily the same. And I think that's what kind of caused some confusion for me at first. But then I read the piece on sexual transmutation, and there was an exercise in one of the books that has you go through this process of identifying a period of time when you fell in love with someone.
Mhm.
Say it's my husband because we don't want to rock the boat here, right? So I remember when I first met my husband, like, what were the things that you felt? What were the things that you wanted to, you wanted to talk to them all the time. You always wanted to be with them. You always wanted to do something special for them. What were the things that you wanted to do for this person that was like almost an obsession, right? Because I think, when you're first in love, you have that kind of obsessive
Yeah.
mode about you. And then I parlayed that into what my burning desire is. Like, what would I do if I wasn't going to get paid? Like, just for free. What would I do for free? And that's how I came to coaching. I mean, I think for me, it's more heart led, it's more service led.
Yes.
It wasn't necessarily about making this big paycheck or becoming like, the next internet sensation or anything like that. But, what would I do to have that emotion of fulfillment in my life? So I would say, if you're looking at what your desire is, it's not necessarily what you want, but it's necessarily of how you want to feel while you're doing those things. So yeah, it was a really powerful exercise for me to stop and think about, that period of time, because I mean, clearly, I've been married for 20 years, and I'm not necessarily saying that I don't want to talk to my husband every day, but it's not like, as pressing as it was.
Not obsessed about it anymore.
Right. Or like, I don't get those like fluttery feelings anymore, to a certain extent, right? It depends on whatever, but yeah, so really to kind of think about what you want to do and what kind of gets you to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to spend, this amount of money or in this area or this amount of time. And I know necessarily it's not tied to, like, let's say money, but it's more tied towards what I want to accomplish and how I want to feel and who I want to impact while I'm doing these things, is powerful. So yeah.
Wow. If I may, Serena, you mentioned feelings, right? And we know, like, even through auto suggestion, like whatever we tell ourselves, Napoleon Hill says we can repeat day by day in every way. I'm getting better and better. If I repeat it like I just did, like I'm probably not going to get better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with mixed with emotion, with enthusiasm. That's when it seems real to us, and that's when our subconscious mind begins to believe. So, yeah, you dropped a lot of gold
Yeah.
nuggets on
Oh,
for
thank you.
not only for our viewers, but for Julie and I.
Love
My
that.
page is full of notes.
I know, I'm like running out of room over here. Oh, goodness. All right, so let me ask you one more question on this specialized knowledge. How do you balance learning with action so you don't get stuck in the I need to learn more trap? Like, maybe like that rabbit hole we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah. For me, when I learn something, I try to apply it so it sticks. And I know that sounds kind of crazy or whatever it may be, but
Good.
I've learned that once I read something, I need to actually go and apply it somewhere, instead of just reading and trying to power read the book. I that's my learning style, though, so that doesn't necessarily, you know, I guess meld with everybody else, but that's just kind of what I do. So I just feel like if you kind of take that piece of learning, stop and absorb it, journal on it, meditate on it, or do whatever you need to do to absorb the information. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all either, because I mean, think about how we, study Think and Grow Rich when we read it. Like we don't just like read it through and move on. It's like, you spend a good long while
The
on
sentence- One
a
sentence will go.
sentence or a
Yes.
page or whatever. So yeah, and then we're like applying it for life, right?
Yes.
And as you go back through it again, I think, learn it, like read it from a different level of awareness. So once you get it absorbed, like, and like you're saying, and you're going out and applying, you make it part of this and you sort of live with it for a while. But then as you've sort of moved forward in your life, your awareness is expanded, and then you go and read it again, or you read something else and you're like, oh, that kind of relates back to this, but I see it differently. I
Yeah.
like, it seems different this time when I read it. I get something else from it. And, there's always like more layers and levels to it.
So, and this is a crazy little story, and I have to tell you guys, but so my husband and I, we play tennis, and when my son goes to tennis camp for the week, we'll go and do the adult camp. So this means that we're playing like 5.5 hours of tennis a day. And so, along with that, when you play tennis, you realize that you have to continually be persistent about taking these lessons, right? So there's a lesson within tennis that I is just like I can parlay that into all kinds of Napoleon Hill principles. I mean, it's just a phenomenal game, and you have to be very in the moment and mindful when you do it. But last time we were at tennis camp, I was taking a private lesson because in tennis, also when you focus on one area, sometimes another area can go weak. It's just kind of like anything you do, right? So anyway, so I was working on my backhand, and the coach said, if you can't see your target, it's going to be very difficult for you to hit the cone, which is your
Wow.
goal, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just dropped gold. If I
Yeah.
can't see what my target is in front of me, it's really going to be difficult to hit my goal. Like, so anyway, so he's talking to me, and I'm thinking of like all these principles. And I think once you get immersed in Napoleon Hill's principles, you kind of see it in all aspects of your life, whether it's
Everything.
sports, religion, you name it. Yeah. And so it's funny. So sometimes I'm like, I stop, and I'm sure I have like this puzzled look on my face because I'm like, oh, wait a minute here. That's okay. Things are clicking for me now. Thank you for saying that, but anyway.
That leads me into one other thing I want to ask you about, because I hear Napoleon Hill principles in music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like people's lyric, like, Taylor Swift and stuff like that. Like she'll drop some lines and I am like, wow, this girl is, like you can just tell that she eats, drinks, and breathes success. Like she just
Mm-hmm.
like lives it. But along those lines, we're developing like a principal playlist. And so I wanted to know if you had like one song that sort of keeps you motivated toward your purpose. Maybe it doesn't apply to specialized knowledge, but is there something that just kind of keeps you going and like keeping toward that target, and things like that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Sorry to put you
Well,
on the spot like that.
oh
And
gosh,
you
no,
can't,
no.
think about it.
I'm thinking of a song. I can sing it for you. I don't know if you guys heard
Oh
it,
yeah, go for
on the
it.
recording, but no, I was thinking I Will Survive. Like
Ah,
Okay, I like that.
yeah.
that's a
I
great
like that.
karaoke song.
Gloria Gaynor.
Yeah.
That's great. I
Like
love that.
It's kind of crazy we haven't heard that come
I
up. I
know.
like that. Thanks
That's
for
because
yeah.
it's
singing that, Serena.
Serena's
First I
song.
was afraid. I was petrified. I love that.
I could.
Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. Oh my gosh, that's
I'm
what we
not
need to
going
start
there.
doing. We got
I'm
to just
not,
come on. You can do
I'm
it, Nick. Join in the chorus.
Yeah, you never want to invite me to karaoke because I will hog the mic. You don't
Oh
want
my
to do
gosh. Yeah, let's go.
it.
Oh, this has been great. Serena, thank you so much for being here with us today. I just, I was kind of like a little bit about this topic, like, specialized knowledge, how much are we going to draw out from that or whatnot? But wow, you really brought
Serena
it.
knocked it out.
Oh, thank
Balance,
you.
body, being, business, the limits you set on yourself. Like, geez, just here we go.
Yes,
So thanks for bringing it to us today. This was
you
awesome.
did. Thank you, Serena.
Enjoyed it.